Why were people in the early modern period so obsessed with milkmaids? From dressing up to erotica, these ladies were heavily admired. Hi, I'm Em, I'm a historian and I love brilliant historical women. We've spoken a lot about elite women so far, so let's have a look at the figure of the milkmaid and how she influenced society in a big way. The figure of the milkmaid has one of the most interesting reputations in history. A mass of contradictions, she was very much admired and desired. But why? What gave her this iconic reputation, and what does it tell us about the period? Particularly in the 18th century, ideas about sexuality and health were beginning to change. There was an idealization of country life as pure and full of vitality, particularly in contrast to the influence of city living. People thought that fresh air, good food, and working with your hands, like milking cows, were the key to good health. In contrast, urban luxuries, think of fancy feather pillows, high heels, and overly opulent lifestyles, were seen to make people sickly and unhealthy. This rural vitality was embodied by the milkmaid, and in consequence, her own virtue was considered as pure as her fresh, healthy milk. It also helped that their dresses were a little bit shorter than other women's, keeping the hem out of the muck and the dairy clean, and a little bit of ankle made all the difference. In fact, artists like Hogarth used this in their work. In this scene, the milkmaid is assertive, hardworking, and holding her own against the corrupting forces of the city around her. She gives off an air of honesty and wholesomeness, particularly in contrast to the city figures around her, but she's still a little bit saucy. Have a look at that hem. However, milkmaids weren't just virtuous, and some used their reputation for their own benefit. This scene by Frances Hayman depicts Mayday celebrations, and these two ladies are milkmaids. They dressed up in borrowed finery and danced in front of their customers' houses. It was a chance to advertise their trade and to cement their reputation. The milkmaid's image of simplicity and natural beauty had a wide influence in society, and aristocratic women were keen to cast themselves in the same light. In this portrait, the Duchess of Queensberry chose to portray herself in simple, plain clothes to reflect these ideals. She's even holding a stick and resting her hand on a pail, while a real milkmaid does the work in the background. In fact, the upper classes were so fascinated with dairy that they began to build elaborate dairy buildings on their estates, like this one at Kenwood. The second Earl of Mansfield had this built for his wife Louisa, as it had become a fashionable hobby for great ladies to work in their dairies. This was a trend perpetuated by Marie Antoinette. These were elegant spaces, more elaborate than if they were for servants alone. For example, this dairy at Audley End is beautifully tiled and contains these lovely column features, which were very fashionable at the time. However, the milkmaid wasn't just a symbol of purity and health. Inevitably, due to her desirability, she became associated with sexuality and corruption. In works like The Virtuous Milkmaid Scarlet, the milkmaid becomes the object of desire. In this piece, she is approached by a lecherous squire and has to resist his advances. In this case, the maid remains chaste and virtuous, and is rewarded with marrying him. Lots of 18th century romances end in this way, and it's a strange tale that blends purity and corruption, and we can think what we like in the modern day of her reward. So, whether as a symbol of health, virtue, or sexual allure, the milkmaid's role is a fascinating one. It shows how the simplest things could be transformed into something so much bigger, and even how women of the lower echelons could come to influence society, culture, and even fashion.